takes your hearing.
Yeah, so, well, we could... give thanks. I know, I was just thinking, thank you for lunch, but my stomach's so full I almost can't speak. I'm like that bird. So did we talk about the after lunch sessions in retreat? I mean, it was interesting, wasn't it, this morning when Geshe-la was saying to Wongmo La's question, don't be concerned about your food and your accommodation. And I thought, she's not concerned about her food and accommodation. She just pops down from there and she can do her own food like we've been doing. But I mean, Geshe-la was making the point, I think, because we had a 3-hour programming meeting of which 2 hours was talking about can we cater for people and how is that going to work? So maybe Geshe-la heard about that meeting.
It was also what Leonie said about not focusing on the mundane. Like
not focusing on the mundane, yeah. And this is the thing. I think Geshe-la made that strong advice to us, not just for in the retreat sessions, but also the in-between sessions where, I mean, normally we talk about everything you do with bodhicitta motivation in between and mindfulness, and we, you know, anyway, there's more about that in the notes, which we probably haven't got time to go through, but you've got it all there, and we've covered a lot of that previously. But yeah, it was interesting, Geshe, you know, oh yes, the in-between bit is doing your mandala offerings, doing your mantra recitation, doing your prostration. Oh, that's of course in between. That's your relaxing bit. Yeah, I love it. Are we going to start, I think?
Yes, actually. But what an amazing...
Is it on?
Yes, it's all on. It should be all on.
Okay.
It's not on YouTube. It's supposed to be on YouTube.
No, we're not going on YouTube for this session.
I did, but don't talk about it.
Yeah, it just, yeah.
Just amazing that you went on to the Tantra, but then got back to the preliminaries. So
yes, it was very...
To me, what he did, he took us down a pathway that we didn't, for me, it was like,
I'm not there yet.
Not there yet. When he took us down that pathway, then brought us back and said, no, first we did this, but then this is what you can aim for.
Yeah, so he was, no, I wasn't expecting that. And I thought, oh, it's interesting. Geshe-la's talking, emphasizing the Tantra.
It's like he was pushing us to,
yeah,
it was like
planting the seeds.
So you can do
planting the seeds.
And this is what's on.
But yeah, what we're doing is really good.
Yeah.
And we need to you know, do it properly. But then once we've got that as a basis,
we up the ante. Yeah, and that's what it felt like. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, and so there was, yeah.
Thinking that they'll give some initiation.
Well, well, it almost was like, oh, no. But it was like planting the seeds.
Geshe's often planting seeds, I think. So good of you to notice.
But I never doubt that whatever he says is the teaching that we need.
Yeah, yeah. So take that on board, folks. I mean, having said that, the fact that His Holiness this year gave Chenrezig empowerment, okay, Kriya Tantra, just sort of segueing into the Nyungne topic, which is the last one to discuss today, was, you know, so fortunate that His Holiness gave the Chenrezig empowerment this year. So we just never know how these empowerments are going to subsequently come. Of course, highest yoga tantra, I think it would be a bit, to say the least, difficult to receive those online. And it would have to be a very restricted, I don't even know how they'd manage that, you know, provision, you know, a dedicated Zoom or something, anyway. Because all the lamas, I know Lama Zopa Rinpoche last time here, giving Higher Griva, made very certain that there'd be no recording, and the same happened the prior to that in Bendigo. No recordings, no audio recordings, no video recordings. And we've had that, you know, that seems to be consistent in the past, because it's not something you're going to post on YouTube, you know. it's, you know, as we talked about when we talked about the Intro to Tantra module, that those things are passed on in secret. So the internet is not very secret. So I think that would be difficult. So we just have to pray that we create the karma for that. And I mean, Geshe is still talking. And when Rinpoche comes back and gives these nuns Getzel vows, then when Rinpoche? I think the current projection is March 2022 for Rinpoche's return, but please, when we get to March 2022, don't be saying, but you said, because I have no clairvoyance to know what's happening in the world in any given moment, it would seem. Okay, so any other observations or questions or comments that came up from Geshe-la's talk to us this morning? I think Geshe-la was very generous with his time and his advice, which was really wonderful. I mean, a lot of food for thought.
No, don't motivate, not food motivation.
Not the food motivation.
Yeah, not the food.
A lot of things to think about, not the food motivation. It is after lunch. Yes, Yang
The
Shinhai.
thought occurred to me, and of course I'm not in a rush for those reasons you just explained, but I would assume if it was coming towards the time when empowerments were available, you would need to check with your Lama to see which one was suitable for you.
Yes,
You wouldn't just rush in and
it's generally not to rush in. So Geshe-la talked about your Yidam, or your the deity Yidam, same thing. So, I mean, sometimes because there are empowerments offered, people do take because it's offered, right? Other times people take because, well, for various reasons. It was interesting one time just with the Chenrezig, okay, Chenrezig one Kriya Tantra, Action Tantra. So there was somebody who was going to Tashita. Sort of feels like in the days when you could, obviously it was in the days when you could, to Tashita to do, they were doing, I don't know if it was Nyungne's or Chenrezig retreat, might have been a great Chenrezig retreat. And one of the requirements was that you already had the empowerment. So before this person, woman, okay, went, she requested, you know, this was when I was in Sydney, and she requested that, you know, who might be giving an empowerment, who might I get an empowerment with, and nobody was offering it. And, you know, in your time frame, it's not going to happen, right? And so she went to India, and then I got a message from her saying, oh, this Lama was offering here. So it's like she took the steps and things happened. So that can happen. I'm not saying it always happens exactly like that, but that can happen. Yeah. But so in more specifically response to your question, Yanchin, is that if you're looking at, you know, a particular tantric practice that might be your life practice, is that you would go to your Lama and say, and ask who, like from our side, we generally ask, you know, what is my personal Yidam, my deity? And from their side, they might say, it's good for you to practice this one, because they don't want to say, well, I think it should be, but, you know, with great humility say, practice that this is the practice to do. And then one of our guys in prison received advice, because he wrote to Lama Zopa Rinpoche and received the advice about particular deity practice, and then was sent material from FPMT Education, which normally we would send. And I'm like, what's happening? Because you cannot take those empowerments in prison. And I mean, you cannot bring all those conditions together in a prison setting for that to happen. oh yeah, we're just going to bring in these weird substances and yeah, right, that's not going to happen. So anyway, so I contacted Venerable Holly, and it's like, oh, this is his life practice. It doesn't mean literally right this moment while he's in prison, you know, like, so, but then you think, okay, well, you can do some of the related practices. Say it was like Geshe was talking about Tara. Well, you could do Tara praises, you can do Tara mantras, you can do visualization of Tara. There's a whole lot you can do, preparation, and then have that familiarity with the practice and feel that heart connection with Tara and so forth, which you probably already felt. So yeah, we can do like that. Anyone else?
It's like when the Mani retreat started here, I think it was 2000.
Yes.
Lama Rinpoche wrote the Sadhana, Chinese Sadhana.
Yes.
And it was, and the start of the Sadhana says, if you have the empowerment, you can visualize yourself as a deity.
Yes.
Otherwise, visualize in front of you.
Correct.
And doing that sort of visualization, that sort of sadhana,
yes,
creates the seeds for you to get the empowerment in the future. So if you do those, like you said, the Tara practices, they'll create the seed for you to get it.
Doing the practice, creating the seed, as Gompo last says, just in case you didn't hear Pauline and Kate, to be able to in the future, you know, to create the conditions for that to happen, for you to receive that in the future. So Kate, I loved how Geshe spoke of preliminary practices as a rest in between meditations. I know, it really takes your focus away about it. And also that Geshe said, these are preliminary.
Yes,
they are preliminary, and they are called that, preliminary practices. Nondro means literally preliminary practices, in that, say you did have a deity and you did receive that tantric empowerment, and then you're going to go and do particularly a great deity retreat, which is like 3 years. And so your first year, if you haven't previously done, is the Nyondro, the preliminary practices, as Geshe said, to accumulate the merit and do enough purification for that retreat. So it's not like this is your lifetime practice at all. It's not like, oh, I've done that, now what, you know, finished.
Don't tick it off just yet.
Don't tick it off just yet.
And I don't feel that about the Nyondro I've already done. I know in my life that's not it. There will be heaps more, there'll be that it goes again.
And also, as Kate says here, illustrating how hard it is, the path of Buddhahood. Many smiles at that, because Geshe also made the point, if we're not engaging properly in Dharma practice and so forth, and we just take it as oh yes, well, I'll just do this. It's diminishing what the Buddha went through, and you sort of go, whoa. We don't think about it like that. We think about it more conventionally. But what is it really doing? So, you know, Geshe was really emphasizing this as a preliminary to our actual practice of the Dharma, whether that be your deity retreat or whether that be a Lam Rim retreat and so forth, as we were talking about before. So I just wanted to read a little bit more in relation to Lam Rim, and then I've asked Venerable Gompo to talk about the joys or otherwise of Nyungnes as a Team Nyungne participant. Okay, so meditating on, as Rinpoche says, eliciting experiences of the meditation topics. Okay, so let's take the benefits of correctly devoting to the spiritual friend. This is not in your notes. This is not in your notes. It is in the library though. I know. You know that list of things? You can read that now, because Geshe, interestingly, because I talked about consistency, then Geshe talked about consistency, and then having, which was consistent, you know, the daily practice and having consistent routine. Okay, thank you. We're on the same page, except not that page. So all those other points there, I'll leave you to your leisure to follow through, I think. Let me see. Yeah, it could take a long time to go through this, but we did, those of us who can remember back to December 2018, We covered that, those points, by the way, just saying. We did. Anyway, there they are again, because we need to hear things again and again and again. So this is from the Heart Advice for Retreat, which is also in the library, right? FPMT, Heart Advice for Retreat, by Bonko Rinpoche and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So we did look at, I think, with establishing a daily practice, that extensive presentation of Bonko Rinpoche of the meditation topics and how to meditate on the Lam Rim. There's a whole elaborate part 1, 2, 3, 4. Anyway, we looked at that in brief previously, a year ago. How to elicit experiences of meditation topics. Okay. All right. First, for instance, let's take the benefits of correctly devoting to the spiritual friend. First, you should establish the root, the core meaning that you need to generate in your mind as experiential realization. Analyze each of the 8 benefits using their specific quotations and reasoning as if you were engaging in a debate against yourself. This is such precious advice, how to approach, and you can apply that to each topic. Like when we say debate, it's saying debate in the Tibetan sense of debate. So like when we go through the points on emptiness and we use reasoning points. Geshe-la outlined a little bit this morning, but we have gone through, you know, that you do the 4-point analysis, the 5-point analysis, the 7-point analysis or so forth, which means you have to familiarize with what the points are. Look at it from all angles. If it's not this, could it be that? If I is not here, could it be here? Could it be there? Could it be all of that? Could it be none of that? Could it be both? You analyze everything. Okay. Apply this with effort until you are able to generate an ascertaining awareness. In other words, it sinks in. Ascertaining awareness. Aha. You know? Now, it won't all sink in. It says an ascertaining awareness, not all, every single ascertaining awareness. So we have to be clear about that. When the core meaning of the subject clearly appears through mind, when you are able to see, this is it, it's like this, then just focus your mind on that conviction. So we're talking about doing the analytical meditation, and when you go, that's it, single point of concentration on that, hold it in your mind. So applying analytical meditation, combining that with single pointed meditation on the conviction elicited by the analysis. And you do this over and over again. So this was, you know, as with Floren's question, and Geshe-la made about non-duality and about duality, Geshe-la made that point that this was in relation to bodhicitta and wisdom realizing emptiness. So the presentation is different in Sutra and Tantra. But limited what you can say too much about the Tantra aspect, unless, as Geshe-la indicated, you have that empowerment. So, and then you get the commentary. So that similarly, we say, you know, until we see both as arising simultaneously, we're going backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. So we're going analytical meditation, and then when we reach a point of, it might be like, often for me, it's like, oh, I never thought about it like that before, and try and grab it before you've overanalyzed and sit there with it, whatever it was that you never thought of like that before. Because those moments can be very fleeting, and we want to make them stick. We want to develop that deeper realization that it's not just at the very gross level of our consciousness that sinks down into more subtle levels of mind. Okay, do it over and over. There's no page in between. With the exception of calm abiding, this is the manner of meditation for all the topics on the graduated path to enlightenment. up to special insight, okay? So that's how you apply it. You apply it. And if you, the analytical points, the points you're looking at are the points in the Lamrim outlines. They're in Bonka Rinpoche, the Brush in the Palm. They're more extensively in the Lamrim Chenmo, the Great Treatise on the Path to Enlightenment, are slightly more abridged in the Middling Lamrim, which Geshe has said of all the teachings he's doing at the moment, that's the most important one. So Friday mornings is the one. And it was quite interesting because Geshe was saying he wanted to keep teaching and not stop. I said, Geshe, people aren't going to come on Christmas Day. Just saying. You have to take a break on Christmas Day. People won't be here. But it will. So that's why we've got another week. Okay, so until you have produced the experience of a specific topic, you should not move on to the next. So you can see on one hand, we've got this outline that says do the glance meditation and rotate through the topics on a daily or a few daily basis. So that's one way. One way is that you spend a week or so on each topic, or 3 weeks or whatever, and you can get a richness there. The advice here, and this is if you're doing, it depends on the length of your retreat, is that you don't move on to the next topic until you've produced the experience of a specific topic. So like with the example I gave earlier this morning of the guy who 4.5 years later hadn't gone past the first topic. So he was taking that particular advice as his method, right? I won't move on. Like generally what we do, say we're using Foundation of All Good Qualities, you read that first verse, you pause, you meditate there, and then you just read through the other ones, but your focus is on that, right? That's your meditation, that's your topic until, so one way as here, until you've got a realization of that. I mean, that approach I find quite attractive in that, gosh, you could get a realization of that in this lifetime, you're sorted. Because the Foundation of All Good Qualities is on the basis of correctly devoting to a spiritual friend. So if we're correct devotion, we're sort of cared for, you know, because we've knocked out all the objectionable minds in our own that see the Guru as ordinary or see the faults or don't see the qualities, don't appreciate, like devaluing all the hard yards that the Buddha put in. When I say hard yards, I mean 3 countless great eons of hard yards. Eva.
Yeah, I'm thinking I find that they are very much related to each other. All
Yes,
these topics.
all the topics are related. Mm.
So my feeling is that you go round cycle, then I don't know, just my own feeling.
Yep.
Understand, see for myself.
Yeah.
I found that they all put together after
Excuse me.
some
Yes.
several modules. They're all related. But I'm thinking if I only do this module or that module and then stick to them, probably for myself.
Yeah.
I feel the same way for me, because I was going to ask, is it, do you go by what your Lama says or do you go by what you think would work best for your mind?
If you're wanting to engage in a serious retreat on this, I would talk to Geshe and just say, because it also depends where we're at and what time we have available to us. So say, for example, you say like you're saying, Eva, that the attraction of cycling through all the topics, so you have that sense of the whole path to enlightenment and what is possible there, we could say fits very well with how the teachings are presented here, right? Or how they're often presented in other places. And you find, because that way you're continuing a cycle of study, reflection, meditation, study, reflection, meditation. You're continuing on a cycle, isn't it? Yeah. And so you're going into each of those topics and each time, so taking always the opportunity to get more teachings. What did Geshe say was the most important topic? And that His Holiness had 4 truths, you know, so generally, as Carton translates it, is 4 truths for Arya beings, for the noble ones, because they are truths. The truths in themselves are not, or they are noble. I mean, they're fact, But the noble relates to those who have that attainment in their mind stream, who are the Arya beings who realize all that quite clearly. So it was interesting to hear that, and especially the third and fourth, so cessation, and then how to get there. So, but even that, especially the cessations, in other words, especially wisdom realizing emptiness, with the bodhicitta motivation, of course.
Yes.
So there's a logic of that. So we have to develop clarity in our own minds and to say, okay, so we can, it's like when you do a deity visualization, the advice is always either get a general picture and build that up, or focus on one thing and then gradually add other things. I think most people, the sense of getting a general picture is a comfortability. And then sometimes you're going to say, oh, I really want to focus on that point. And so you focus in on that point for a week, a month, a year, 10. So yeah, so I can see where you're going, and the structure of this allows for it.
Yeah, I think maybe for beginners like us.
Yes,
it's
definitely.
to have a broad picture.
A broad
example,
picture.
Like guru devotion.
Yes.
It was very hard at the beginning, but after studying about Tantra, then I realized some of the guru devotion is Tantra.
Well, some of the guru devotion is Tantra, yes. And where it becomes significant is Tantra. So I can see why you're saying, you know, at the beginning, that's difficult.
Yeah, but you've got to make the connections to get the depth.
Yes. That's why we're all backing up to do this again.
Yeah.
How many are backing up to do it again?
I'll do it in 2022.
2022 after her.
Yeah.
Yep. Excellent. I know, 2-3 times. I mean, because wherever you're at, you're deepening your understanding, because you have a familiarity with the topic, with the terminology, and it just, whatever level you're at, it only ever deepens, you know, it only ever deepens. You bring in other understanding, and that makes it rich for everybody. Really makes it rich for everybody. So fantastic. Okay, so I should move on to the Nyingnes, I know. Topic. Yeah. Just, I'll come back. However, oh, am I up to however? I'll just let you know if I'm up to however yet. Oh yes, elicit, not move on to the next topic unless you elicit the experience of the previous one. In case of some of the topics, the experience can be easily elicited within the space of 1 or 2 weeks. So we're not talking about your whole life is transformed, but you get a sense of the topic. Like impermanence, I think we get impermanence fairly quickly. Of course, we get subtle moment by moment impermanence, subtle impermanence. Of course, well, that's I was going to say, of course not, but who am I to know? But we get the intellectual understanding of that, even we don't get the realization of that yet. Okay, so good enough. So some things can be quick, and some other things, as Eva said, actually the Guru Devotion one is hard. It is, particularly in our culture, I think, because we aren't brought up with these notions. Just let me see. In some ways, it was quite good to come in at the deep end. Oh, good on you, Kate, coming in at the deep end.
Lauren did too.
Sorry.
You came in at the deep end.
Qualified by confidence to start again. Yeah, because you got your Dharma buddies as well. So that's fantastic.
You can learn swimming if you go to the deeper end.
Yes, right. You touch the bottom.
Well, you could say you could learn swimming by going to the deeper end and realize why you need to learn swimming. Why you need to go back to the shallow end. Yeah, that's, yeah. Okay. It might take months or years. However, you should not be concerned with the amount of time. Just apply the effort required in producing the experience. And having said that, you know, some things will just take a matter of weeks or so forth. So we also have to think, we put a lot of weight on this word realization, experience. I mean, everything we experience is a mental experience, right? Everything. So we're having experiences all the time. Enough to say, yeah, I've got some sort of sense of what that is. Doesn't mean I know everything about it yet. but I've got enough sense of that. And then when you go around the second time, as we're talking about, oh, I got more of a sense. Oh, isn't that interesting? Now I've got more of a sense. Okay. If you keep putting effort in this way, the experience of realizations will gradually develop until it is firmly rooted. So firmly rooted is, to my mind, that you're never going to unlearn that thing. You're never going to be swayed of another way of thinking. So in other words, you develop the right view and you're not going to be swayed off to say, oh, karma doesn't matter, you know, or next life, don't worry about that. Or there's no next life. You're not going to be swayed by any of that you have some conviction. I think that's a good enough realization, isn't it? Well, you don't.
But especially to start with.
To start with.
And then you go, oh, okay, I've got that.
Yeah.
Maybe I can go further.
Yeah. And here, Rinpoche, just going on from Geshe-la, how to engage between sessions, circumambulate, this is your between sessions, circumambulate holy objects. I mean, that's also related to you need to do exercise, not just sit on the cushion all the time, engage in activities that require standing.
The prayer wheels are good, yeah.
The prayer wheels are good.
The big prayer wheel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good workout, that prayer wheel. It's heavy. And not having expectations about where we think we should be, or because that becomes an obstacle. Grasping at a result, because you're denying the opportunity of something else completely different could happen. I remember Venerable Sangye Kadra at one point, which was in Sydney, so she used to go to her Lama and say, and what about this and what about that? And the Lama would give her advice and completely ignore whatever she had. Yeah, I get that. But didn't you hear what I said?
It was quite good to come in at the deep end.
Yes, good. Good to hear you, Kate. Good to come in at the deep end. She's enjoying learning to swim.
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to move on, unless, Kate, you had more to say right there.
Oh no, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, all right, just checking. Is there a clock around here somewhere?
Just behind the cup, on the side of the cup. Yeah.
Oh, is that where it is? I knew I put it there. I couldn't see it. Oh my gosh, time flies. Okay, Nyungnes. So this is, I thought we'd keep it till after lunch, because part of the Nyungne practice is you have one day where you take 8 Mahayana precepts. In other words, you have one meal before midday, and then the next day you have meal by now. So it's good to talk about after lunch because we're not feeling hungry. Anyway, so we are again fortunate that we have the conditions for that. We expect to have the conditions for that next year. We're planning to have the conditions for that. And we've had Venerable, well, the main condition being Venerable Asa saying, I will run.
She's still picture keen, isn't she?
Totally. There are 8 Nyungne retreats next year. So fantastic.
Here?
Yes. So traditionally, they happen here in the lead up to Sakadawa, the Buddha's anniversary, commemorating the Buddha's birth, passing into parinirvana and enlightenment, which I think is in late May from memory next year. I didn't bring the date with me. So, but it's always late May, beginning of June, that sort of time. So which is nice because we do it as a winter month thing. So it's a bit cooler. Whereas in Sydney, we were always doing it like February or December and hot, although we did have aircon. So the Nyungne retreat, I'll read a little bit and then get Gompo life.
How many days is the retreat?
So how it works, and it's one of the things that Rinpoche says, it's great for lay people as a weekend retreat. However, for discovering Buddhism, you need to do 3. They don't need to be 3 in order. So say out of the 8, even you did them all at that time, you might do 1 at the beginning, 1 at the middle, 1 at the end. So some people say it's easier just to do 1. Other people at a time, other people who've done more say it's easier to do more at a time. And I sort of feel in that category because I find it much easier once you get in the role, and I can see Gompo La nodding. And of course we have our dear brothers and sisters who even under COVID, they didn't have to stop, right? At Institute Vajrayogini, doing 108 Yungnays, which also Rinpoche sponsors those doing 108 Yungnays. So it's doable, you know. Diana went from Langri Tangpa and then Vajrayana, and then I don't know if she's back in Brisbane, I'm not sure.
She's back in Sydney.
Back in Sydney.
Coming up to Brisbane for a visit soon.
Okay, yeah, so fantastic. You know, someone we know survived. So profound practice to develop compassion based on offerings, prostration, praises to Chenrezig, Avalokiteshvara, but of compassion. And it also fits in, the retreat fits in, like Gompo mentioned before, the Mani retreat, and how we, or the empowerment, Chenrezig empowerment, and then doing the Mani retreat that we have here also. And that is based on, the text is extracted really from the Nyungnay text. So the Chenrezig, elaborate Chenrezig practice. So we do like set up, say we were doing over a weekend, we would set up Friday afternoon or Friday, and then have the initial just intro, whatever, settle in, introduction thing on Friday evening, everyone settles in, and then it goes pre-dawn the next day, next 2 days. And it finishes then, say the weekend, you'd finish on the Monday morning around about 8 a.m, right? So you can, some people actually go off to work after that.
The first one I did here, back in 2005, I did that, finished, had the big breakfast, went off to work.
Do you want to come and talk about Nyungnays? Come on, you've started. Gompo, I asked him to come and share his experience of Nyungnays. So while he's getting up, I'll just mention that, so why they say 3 for DB, for discovering Buddhism as the requirement, is 1, is that you participate in it, you familiarise with the practice. 2, you assist with the practice, setting up the altars, knowing what, you know, what's what and so forth. So you assist the leader. And 3, you lead at least a session. It says lead a Nyungnay. It says know how to lead a Nyungnay. And I take the know how quite literally, personally, and say if you lead a couple of sessions, then you're in. You tick the box, right? So at some point you do have to lead a session. Some sessions are longer than the other. And so generally when I'm leading Nyungnays, so I'd get people to lead the sessions in between, not the beginning of the day or end of the day sessions that have extras. So like that. So Gompo, come. Would you like a chair here, or?
I can sit on the floor.
You can sit on the floor. I rejoice.
That's the question.
Hi, everybody. Nyungnays?
Yes.
Do them, they're wonderful. Anything else? No.
Just a little bit more detail. Why are they wonderful?
I think, first I'd say my strong recommendation would be do a minimum of 2 in a row. The first one, often when you start, can be challenging, removing obstacles that come up. So mentally and physically, you can have some obstacles come up. But by the time you got to the second one, you're a bit more into the flow of things, and you've removed some of those obstacles, and it's easier to get through, and you're not especially if you've never done one before, the first one can be, when do I stand up? When do I prostrate? What's going on? And by the time you've done one whole one, you've had 7 sessions, you've got a bit of an idea, because each session is slightly different, but there are many things that are the same in each session. So by the time you've done one whole Nungne, you've done 7 sessions, and you've got a bit of an idea of how it flows. So by the time you come to the second session, a second Nungne, you feel more comfortable in actually each session, and it becomes more of a meditation. Because in the first one, especially if it's your first ever Nungne, you tend to be struggling with the logistics. What page are we on? When do I stand up? When do we prostrate? What do we do? Once you get in the rhythm of it, it's easier. And also the second one, your body has physiologically settled into that rhythm as well, so it's much easier. The reason I think Nungnes are so beneficial for me is because they're a wonderful opportunity to clear your mind. Because you let go of outside distractions and you focus exactly on what you're doing, because you have 3 or 4 sessions a day, you have a routine and a rhythm that you get into. And in that routine and rhythm, you let go of those outside distractions. You don't go on Facebook, you don't chat to your friends, you simply exist or abide, if you like, in the retreat, which is a wonderful way of focusing your mind into a virtuous activity. And the other thing is that you have very clear focus on what you have to do during the sessions, but between the sessions, it's also a wonderful time to allow your mind to just be. So when I was talking about before, using the big prayer wheel, or sometimes I go down to the stupa, down the very front, at the top of the stairs, the front there is circumambulate that stupa, because you allow your mind to simply be without thinking. And in a busy modern world that we live in, it's very, very rare that we allow ourselves to simply be. And Nungne gives you that opportunity to do that. And it brings your mind to focus in a lot of different ways, because as Venerable Chuki said, the second day of each Nungne, you don't eat or drink. So you can experience sometimes, and everyone does experience it differently, you can experience some immediate suffering of not drinking and not eating. And that brings your mind into sharp focus on what's important in life. I'm not worried about who said what to whom and what's on TV, and I can't wait till next week's TV show. I'm thinking, I'm hungry now. And my mind is completely focused on that. But then it's not just that. You're also given instructions on how to make that beneficial for yourself. So you're given instructions on, when you experience that sort of suffering, imagine that you're taking on board the suffering of all sentient beings, which is the bodhicitta motivation. And with that bodhicitta motivation, you have a very clear example of how your own suffering right at this point in time can be lessened. Because you might think, me, I'm hungry, it's all too hard, I can't do it. And you think,
bird.
yeah, that bird.
I can't believe it's hungry again. It just had a very round belly.
I've had times like that in my life too. I have very round belly. Yes, anyway. So when you're feeling that suffering of hunger, and you have the teaching on imagining that you're taking on the hunger of every suffering sentient being, and you think, well, actually, my hunger is not so bad. I'm doing this right now in order to alleviate other suffering. What's my suffering compared to the millions of people who are suffering around the world? And my immediate suffering is lessened. So you have a very clear, immediate, effective example of how bodhicitta motivation makes your life better. So from my point of view, Nungnes focus your mind in a very positive way on a very positive thing and allow you to let go of the outside distraction of the world. Gives you concrete examples of some of these things that we're trying to train our minds towards, and with immediate beneficial effect from it. So I think that's the reason I keep coming back to do more, and I'd very much like to do more. If we could do more than 8, I would be very happy to do more than 8. But at the moment, I've only been able to do three in a row. So hopefully I'll get to do more than 3 in a row in the future. I hope to do as many possible in a row as I possibly can. 2,000 would be good.
2,000 would be good. And just to inspire you on the 2,000, you have more to say?
That's all I can think of. Unless there's
Thank
any
you,
questions.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I ask, sorry?
Yes, please ask.
You said there were 7 sessions, so each session different? Every session is different?
So every session, sorry.
Slightly different. So every session you're doing prostration 3 times in the session. The killer's at the end. And you're doing visualization of Chenrezig. Those who don't have the empowerment in front or above, or generally front generation, it's said. And then you're doing intensive recitation of the mantra. And then because we here at Chenrezig Institute have that commitment to 100 million manis a year, which we have not yet achieved, we keep a tally and record that, and that goes to our contribution of that goes to Rinpoche. And that's since the 2000 when the book Teachings from the Mani retreat is about that time when Rinpoche led that retreat here initially. So you're doing those things, but you're doing other prayers and so yeah, it's visualization, it's recitation of prayers and of mantras, of prostration, what have I left out? Making offerings, you know, so you're going through the limbs of offering and the 7 limbs and whatever. So you familiarize with the basic practice. So anyone who's done the Mani retreat, you will be familiar with a lot of those practices without having done the hardcore of, so what comes along as well is taking the 8 Mahayana precepts, and for the first day, that includes food. Second day, no eating, no drinking, and in silence. So this is why we also say to people that if you have particular health issues, to make sure you're checked out by your doctor, that you're good to go. Maybe don't explain to them the practice. They'll be like, you're going to do what? But that if there are people with genuine health concerns, like 2 of our, well, they're twins, students in Sydney who Geshe Dawa said, you never do Nyungne. If you do Nyungne, you'll die.
Sorry, who is that?
A couple of students were told by their Lama. So you just have to trust that he knew what he was talking about. I wouldn't put it to the test if someone said that to me. I would just be like,
Okay.
phew, I'm off the hook.
Diabetics would probably.
But they were given intensive other practices
Oh,
where other people got 100,000, they got 1 million. So, you know, different practice. Yangshin.
If you had pre-existing mental health issues, would you also need to be cautious in doing these?
Pre-existing mental health issues, I think, would depend on the person. It does raise the point, though, and it raises the point for any retreat, as I said this morning, that often people say, oh, I want to go and do a retreat, or some of the prisoners, not necessarily with mental health issues, or maybe they have, and when they're being released, they want to get ordained and live in a retreat setting because they don't trust themselves in society. And so that's not the reason to do any of those things, because that will not work for anyone. So it really has to be assessed. And yeah, so generally for longer retreats, like when we do the 3-month Vajrasattva, we have, you know, people have to, like last time we had, it was like, okay, well, sometimes you have to have a psychiatrist sign off that that person can do that retreat. That has happened, most definitely. Not generally for a Nyungne retreat, because it's a shorter retreat. The first day you can talk, So, but it does raise the point of if anyone's concerned at any time throughout the retreat, maybe at the end of a session would be useful, or beginning of the next session, is to come to the retreat leader or, you know, or someone nominated by the retreat leader to say, I'm having a problem with this or that. I mean, the problems that I've seen occur is when someone decides at the same time, it would be a really good idea to give up smoking or coffee at the same time. And
They've gone, they're just fallen apart.
yeah, I mean, obviously you can't be having the coffee on the second day, but yeah, you can set yourself up for failure big time because you think, oh, I'll do the complete detox. I'll go off everything. And anyone who has medication, it's always a proviso. You take your medication and you take it with the least amount of water or whatever that is necessary to take your medication. But you don't go off your medication, you know, of whatever medication.
The only. Too, I was just going to say, if you do it too, and you'll see that to pace yourself. I think we'll average
The prostration, 500, 600, 700,
last round I
whatever.
did one, you
Yeah.
did 3, and you pace yourself, so you're averaging 500 a day of full body prostrations.
Yeah, so you're doing a lot of prostrating.
And you use the hand, you use the scarf.
And this can be, and we really have to know our own bodies because
that's the thing, you do it. No, and that's the thing, you do it to what you can for your body, but if you are going to do the full body ones.
so there was, you know, one time this woman doing actually she wasn't Buddhist, you know, you don't have to be Buddhist to do this practice, right? Yeah, but she was just really wanted to do it. She did have a religion, but it wasn't Buddhist. And she loved it. So you just have to say there's some karma there with that practice. She loved it. She threw herself into it and she'd never prostrated in her life. And you look at her going, you are going to be sore and sorry. You are going to be sore and sorry. Physically, she wasn't. Well, even mentally, she wasn't. It was just in the last morning. So they say when you read stuff beforehand, it used to be on Langui Tangpa's, because Langui Tangpa, what, 3 a year generally?
So usually the Easter long weekend and then between Christmas and New
Yeah,
Year's.
so a few times, but I don't think Christmas, New Year, they're doing Tara this year, is it? Somebody said yesterday.
I'll have a look.
Anyway, we'll have to have a look. I'm not sure if it's happening this year at Langui Tangpa, but at this time, whereas it normally is. So there's a whole team Nyungne there, and they all come up here and boost and it's like you've got these long-term Nyungneers, and it's amazing. It really is very joyful. You know, I've been in times when it's just been me and one other person, and then if there happened to be a puja at that time, we'll say, oh no, we want people to come for puja because we want a boost of energy. So we just sort of work around the puja time and not talk to the people.
One thing I've just remembered.
Yes, please.
What Venerable Chucky was saying earlier about letting go of expectations is really, really important. Because if you walk into a Nungne and say, I'm going to do 1,000 prostrations a day, and that's my goal, it's destined for
Failure.
obstacles
Yeah.
to arise. So sometimes you might get to a session and say, if I do 3 prostrations this session, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Anything more than 3 is a bonus, and you get 3 done, you go, I can do 1 more, maybe I'll do 1 more. And you get 4 done that session, you go, well, okay, that's all I could manage. And I'm going to be gentle and kind with myself, because as you go through it, obstacles arise, and by you beating your head against the brick wall of the obstacle, you don't get rid of the obstacle, you make it harder for yourself.
Yeah.
So being kind and gentle and removing expectations is very, very important.
Yeah, we have to be very gentle in this practice because it's an intense practice. Not be gentle like, oh, well, I won't do any prostration. She said, be gentle, I won't do anything. But yeah, we do need to, we know we're best boss of our own bodies, what it's capable of. And so for myself, over the past few years, you know, I remember coming to the last time Venerable Asa was leading Yungnays, which was a couple of years ago, because she was away and I did last year. And so it was the year before, and I just said to her at the beginning, I won't be prostrating. But then I found I was prostrating, but I had to tell myself, do not keep down this track because you will not be walking, because I know my body. And I know my body at that point in time, even more so at this point in time, because I had that experience where I've got very joyous in doing the prostrations. I love prostrations, but then I know the next day I won't walk, and I'd prefer to be just doing a few now and then and continuing to do the practice, right? So each of us is different, and each of us knows that. So yeah, and this woman who, you know, launched herself into the practice didn't suffer any physical detrimental things. But then on the last day, and this is what I was going to say about Langri Tangpa website, was that they used to have the, you know, sort of for first time Nyungnayas, these are some of the things that might happen. And they say, you're either going to be a fainter or a vomiter. And she was the vomiter variety. You know, we were in it was somebody's house, and we'd converted one of he'd offered the house, and many times Nyungnays had happened in other retreats. And so we were in the Gompa area, and the toilet was just there. So you could hear that she was struggling. Not until the last morning. So, I mean, she got all the way through to the last morning. I think it must have been after she had the chai and the apple juice, which you have to break the fast, and you're hanging out for that moment to break the fast. And then, of course, you know, it can turn out that way. Or they say you're a fainter. Now, I have been neither. I don't know about you, but I was expecting to be one or the other. But but you can get quite faint. I think for me, towards the end of that nil by mouth day, and for some people it's this session, for some people it's that session, and you just go, whoa, maybe I won't go down on the floor anymore. Because I may not get up. Get up quickly.
Going down staying is not a good idea.
Getting up would be good, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Coconut water is better than apple juice.
Coconut water is better than apple juice.
Coconut water is much better than apple juice.
Yeah.
And everyone's different, because I remember the last year here, the last session of the whole thing, I was thinking, this is my last chance to prostrate in a Nungnay. And this is at the end of the second day. So I had no food and water for more than like 48 hours almost.
Yeah.
And this is my last, I've got to prostrate.
36.
And I just went, I'm going, how can I be doing this? I'm sweating. Like, how can I be sweating with no water in my body? I'm just going to keep going. I'm thinking, how did that happen after 3 Nungnays and having no food or water for that time? So it doesn't, that's what I'm saying. You have to let go of expectations, because you don't know what's going to happen, but you have to be accepting of what does. So in that situation, I was accepting that I could do lots of prostrations. I don't know how. Really don't know how.
In terms of expectations, not limiting yourself either.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking of it the other way.
Of course you were. Everyone freaks out about that. But, you know, we do experience difficulties. It comes with the territory. And that's why people, I mean, if people don't understand, and even ourselves may not understand, why on earth would we do this? But we're experiencing difficulties in life all the time. We're suffering all the time, but it's on the basis of just looking at the freedom from suffering in this life. Whereas we're saying, as Gompala said, you know, when those times of suffering come, it's not the suffering of hot hells or cold hells. I mean, for me, always seem to be hot. And I said, well, purify. I'm not experiencing what is described, you know, in the Lamrim about those other hellish existences or predator realms or so forth. Or, as Gompala said, you know, I'm not sort of starving in some other part of the world, you know, who would be overjoyed to say, 1 meal? I get a meal? And it's quite big because it's got to last me through the next, you know, day as well. And I get well fed so that I last, you know. So it's all relative. So it is on the basis of compassion, as Gompala, you know, very eloquently said, in terms of cultivating our bodhicitta motivation. Oh, that's right. As Geshe said, don't be fixated. He wasn't talking about Nyognays, but why not add? Fixated about food and accommodation. It's not about what it's about. It's about the practice. And it is voluntary, except if you want a certificate.
And afterwards you'll be feeling pretty fine.
Afterwards, I mean, it's so, you feel sometimes so joyous.
Yeah.
That's why people keep coming back. The feeling is so good.
Because I'm thinking we need to sell it a little bit.
Because even though they say, you know, we say, oh, we don't know what we're purifying and so forth. You feel so clean.
clean
And their emphasis is on cleanliness and so forth. It's Kriya Tantra, you know, so emphasis is on all of that. Purifying inside, purifying outside, you know, everything is on that. And there's just a glow.
So if you do 2 or 3, one after another,
Yeah.
do you start from the beginning or it's like a
You
process?
break the fast. You break the fast and then you go back into that one meal and break the fast.
So you repeat the same.
Yes.
Yes.
So
You
two
cycle
of them
through.
take 4 days.
Correct. For and the morning.
And the morning, the next morning, we have a big breakfast here on the last, very last day.
Yeah, and then there's a big breakfast at the end. So always do the last one.
Especially here, because often the last one here is on Sakadawa. And
Yes.
so it's an extra big celebration.
Yeah. Yeah, Sakadawa celebration. So it's nice to fit in with that. So the 8 is the tradition in our tradition. But, you know, maybe you don't want to start with 8.
And in some ways too, we've developed in this, with this round of discovering Buddhism, a nice Dharma Jewels
Yes.
community that we feel part of. When you do a Nungne, because you've all gone through similar experiences, you have Nungne brothers and sisters because you've been through a similar experience with them, and you go, well, remember we did that. We were part of that experience together, and that is a very,
yeah.
that's one of the reasons why group practice is so powerful.
It's very, very powerful. And because the energy in that group practice as well, because you can do on your own. I've done them on my own, and it's a lot harder to do on your own. Yes, Nyungne, but Team Nyungne, that's why I love it.
This is why it's really interesting doing them at Langri Tampa and then coming up here and seeing some of the people coming in now doing up here, which is very...
Yes, very good to do around full moon. Actually, I think Rinpoche talks about that, about doing...
It's new moon, by the way.
You
Tomorrow.
do, not so much, not the new moon, the full moon.
It's tomorrow. Or tonight. Or both.
No, both. 8:15, 8:15:30, yes. So they're the dates in the Tibetan calendar that you do around. And then somebody mentioned, I was just looking. So make sure, if you haven't got one of these books, we still have a few copies. I think we were handing those out previously.
The ones that are down there are all that's left at the moment. So what
They're called Abiding in the Retreat. Yeah, they're there. So this is, so we have the Nyungne text, which is the practice that we use here. I mean, the practice we're given, FBMT, right? So it's all in there. This is the commentary, which Venerable also collated Rinpoche's commentary on that. And what I love about this, it's got you, because when you're part of it, you're reading all these lineage lamas, you know, from Bhikshuni Lakshmi, who, you know, brought this practice into the world, all the way down. And so you're reading all these lineage lamas, and you have no idea who they are, who's Janchul Ba, whatever. And they're all in here, and you get their backstory. So you know who they are, and it shows you the lineage. Thank you, Gompola. And then all the way to, yeah, all the way down. So just saying. So one of the ones about the 2000 is Geshe Lama Konchog did 2000 Nyungnes. Now, Geshe Lama Konchog was an extraordinary being. Huh? He was a big man. Yeah, came here. Geshe Lama Konchog. So today we have, you know, Kunsal Rinpoche is the reincarnation of Geshe Lama Konchog. So yeah, he, you know, we know about his story of being above Sum Valley and doing retreat where he was in a cave, and then the villagers found out there was a yogi up there doing retreat. So they came to ask him questions. So he went up higher, and he ended up for a year or so, a couple of years, just living under a tree and wearing next to nothing. I don't know if you've been to Nepal, but it gets cold up there. And taking chulin, taking the essence, so not really eating. So he was a rarefied being in many, many ways. As Rinpoche said, it wasn't till after he passed that he realized that some of the conversations they'd had, that he was indicating that he completed the tantric path. I mean, a realization of emptiness, that he completed the tantric path. But the way they talk, it's not like, oh yes, I've done all that. You know, they don't say that, but just giving an indication. And it was obvious in the relics that came. He had, like we talked about, the 5 Buddha families, the 5 Dhyana Buddhas. He had all those colours in his relics, or relics in it. Did you see relics over there?
Absolutely, yeah.
Over in Kopan? Yeah.
Wonderful,
Yeah, amazing.
And there's other relics that are
Yeah. And, you know, I mentioned previously the nun in Brazil. I think her commitment's 1,000, I believe, that she's determined to complete in this life. And having seen her after 26 in a row where her skin was translucent, literally glowing, like totally translucent. And then that, like if you're not doing them all in a row, that fades. It's like when you do your 8 and you feel really pure and clean, and then stuff happens and you feel a bit ordinary body again. They're impure aggregates, as Geshe was talking about this morning. Okay.
Is anybody continuing Yunnan at home? In
Yes,
the sense that
she is. It's her life practice.
You can do practice, like the practice is fasting, you know.
Yes,
kind of thing.
yes,
You can do that.
yes. I mean, we would have at Vajrayana Institute, there were a number of, because we were restricted when we weren't a retreat centre. We've got every condition here, and we've got all these practices. They're here every year, almost, except for this year. And anyway, so there were a few people who, they were regular because they'd come in to borrow a mandala house, not one as big as this, but come and borrow a mandala house and say, oh, you know, I want to do the Nyumnes at home. So numerous people doing it at home, yeah.
It's probably a good idea to do them in a group first.
First, you do need to.
To get an idea of what happens.
But I'm saying you can continue.
Yes, yes,
Practice it at home.
yes,
You know, it's
yes,
not just-
yes, you can.
You just learn to set up.
And it's not too hard to set up if you're not doing too many in a row, in terms of making sure you have food for those days on which you can eat it, because you don't have to buy many supplies for a weekend or whenever that is, that couple of days. So yes, it's easy to set up, but you do need to familiarize.
What I'm saying is that even you live your life as normal, can you do like a type of Nyuna in the sense that
No.
you do the practices and, you know, the fasting and stuff like that?
Well, unless in your normal life you can have every second day where you're not communicating with anyone at all, because you're not eating, not drinking, not speaking, then I would say that would be very hard. I would say impossible if you're not, because I find it hard to find a life situation apart from retreat where every second day you could say, excuse me, every second day I'm out for the count, you know.
And your mind needs to be.
And your mind needs to be in the practice, yeah. So it wouldn't be, yeah, I wouldn't think that would be doable. As doing the Mani practices, yes, doing the same practices, but without the conditions of Nyumne, yes. Yeah. What was that? You could lock your front gate, absolutely.
Even now she doesn't.
And every second day they'll cook for you too. So there you go.
But some people do that, like, but that usually is a situation where people are very, very experienced, and like, you know, this couple in the Blue Mountains where the guy built his retreat centre underneath the house, and every Friday night but he was doing 3-year retreat, and so he was very experienced, and so every Friday night they'd have dinner together, but apart from that he was in retreat. And then I heard subsequently a few years later they switched, and she did her long retreat.
We had a couple at Langri Tampa Centre one year where there wasn't enough space at the centre. So they set up their altar at home and they did it themselves at home. And they came in for the last session on the last day, and we all did the last session together, and we all had the big breakfast together. But they did they did it simultaneous at their home with their own altar and
They
everything.
supported each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, but generally, definitely you need to familiarise with these practices first. And that's what doing the 3 familiarise you with the practice. And that's the intention of, well, apart from the massive purification that comes along with it. There's also Thubten Chodron's commentary, Cultivating a Compassionate Heart. That's in the library. That copy will be back in the library shortly. And there are commentaries by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and I think Khenpo Rinpoche, Geshe Tashi Sering as well, was there? I think Venerable also had one by him as well. That anyway, all of Lama Zopa's, I think, of it found their way in here. I was doing a compare and contrast. So I think that's enough on Yunus, because I just looked at the time and realised we only have half an hour left, more or less. And thank you, Gompo La, and that's very inspiring to engage in the practice. It is wonderful to do so. You've done. Anyone else done Yunus here, apart from myself?
No, I think it's just the three of you.
Yeah, can I ask a quick question?
Please.
Does your mind get sharper after the noonday?
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does it stay sharper? That depends on our
Not
practice.
for a long time.
Yes.
It's an amazing.
Yes, I mean, that's what purification does. It takes away these obscurations. So yes, definitely.
Even just the fact that you spent 2 days not being distracted, but your mind is completely focused on one thing for those 2 days is beneficial, besides all the obscurations that you purify during the practice. So,
And as Rinpoche says, the purification, like yesterday we were talking about the purification of the prostrations, plus you've got the purification of, you know, all the other aspects of the Nyungne, plus all the qualities of the mantra, plus all the qualities of, you know, visualization. It's such a huge package. So this abiding in the retreat, it tells you all the benefits, all the, you know, doesn't tell you everything you're purifying, but they're eons and eons of many things, right? So, and the way that Rinpoche explains it is eons of purification of things that then lessens by that many eons your time in samsara. So it's good to think about like that.
I was just going to say, you said you went back to work, but I also found on that last day, just be really gentle with yourself, because I found I was like really overstimulated. Like I didn't want the TV anywhere near. I didn't want
Yes,
to think about the traffic.
you're sensitive.
You're so, your mind's so clear that you actually pick up on things really. So just have a calming day if you don't have to go back to work, and just gently ease back into for a couple of days.
Definitely.
I'm oversensitive, you know, and you'll just find that I just found like I just didn't even want to talk to anyone, and it's just that you want to stay in that
Yeah,
headspace. It's so beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you can't.
definitely. It's even though Rinpoche says, and then you can just go off to work, and
Yeah.
and many people do, but I think everyone who's done that says, you know, if you can take that day and go back to work the next day, it's much better.
So is anybody during the retreat who observe that people are following the rules? Is anybody
No, you just.
Is anybody observing that people are following the rules?
like for example, that you don't have your
Phones.
phones and they take your phone away?
No, we don't take people's phones away, but one needs to be mindful of that, because one time there were, anyway, two participants ended up in the one room, and one got annoyed because the other one was on their laptop because it distracted her from her practice. So we have to be mindful of others in that situation. But, you know, it's really, if we understand the benefits, and if we say, really, for 2 days, I can go without my devices, you know, just 2 days, I can go without my devices, say, you know, it's like that.
I've been in other retreats, not
Well, Copan, you lock it in the office.
If you are doing, you know, things,
Yes.
they'll kick you off.
Yeah, we don't kick people off, but like at Copan for that month, everything, you arrive, everything gets locked up in the office, they cut the internet, and that's it.
Totally was the same when I did a couple of days there.
Because it helps you to keep those conditions, because you want to, but we're all attached to our devices. So.
It's amazing.
I want to know how you get through the second day without a cup of tea.
Me?
Yes.
I know a cup of tea will come at the end.
You know it's going to come.
that's another really thing that makes it much easier to deal with the suffering, is that you think of what, as Chuck said before, you think of all these people who can't eat
Yeah.
and never know if they'll ever eat or when their next meal will come. And when you're starving in one day,
Yeah,
I'll
one
eat
day.
tomorrow.
True.
When I wake up in the morning, I'll eat tomorrow.
Yeah, I know.
Very much.
And even you're doing the whole 8, you still know you're going to eat tomorrow and it's going to be very nice and you're not going to have to cook it.
And the food tastes so
It
good.
does. You get like 3 courses for lunch, and it's like fine.
Best food you ever
We're
tasted.
talking about food again.
It's your biggest blessing.
I can see why Geshe says. Okay, off the food, right?
It's the
Yeah, move on from food.
Okay. So,
But no, it's helpful though to hear that. because
Absolutely
then-
helpful
then
to
you
hear.
know, like, okay, it is just for this period of time, and then it's all really good.
we will chat at lunchtime,
It's
and
not
then
just
Potentially.
eating and
Not
vomiting.
necessarily.
No,
Motivation.
I didn't have any vomiting, I could have a
Look,
headache.
if people do vomit or faint, they're in good company because everyone just feels sympathetic because they know what
Yeah,
it feels
that's
like.
all right. So
It's intense. Okay, so we have come to the end of, and now you're on your way. Of course, it's really good I'm very heartened that people want to continue on next year. And just in case you didn't get the memo, that will be starting again in April, because I have to have 2 months off medically. So April it will be. And so we'll start a new round then. And it would be great to have some Dharma friends along that journey. Thank you very much. It really is like we have built a lovely, lovely family peeling, as Lama Yeshe would say, amongst us. And that's credit to everyone here and everyone who's not with us currently. Everyone who's been there along the way. And did anyone remember the name of our first VI? Our first volunteer info. He wasn't here at the very beginning. He was doing it one week Tangpa.
We can think of all the people.
All the people.
All the other participants.
Yeah.
and Lisa and all the others that have all
Yes,
been on the
yes. Who hopefully will be joining us again, so we hope so. And as Virginia was saying at lunchtime, not only that, but she just happened to come here for time out. And Robert in the office says, do you know there's teaching on it? It was the first weekend of DB and here she is at the other end. So
Well, Lisa said she actually enrolled by mistake in discovering Buddhism, and she stayed for 1.5 years.
She did.
before she realised that it was a mistake.
Her life circumstances changed.
Yeah.
But, she got a lot out of it, and, she was a really great help to us as well.
Yes, absolutely.
And then we've had Sally, who's been, I don't know how many times Sally's done it.
Three.
Yeah. Sally's a real trooper. So everyone's a real trooper. And of course, not to mention the 3 ordainees, the 3 new Sangha members who've joined the ranks of Sangha in this time. Amazing.
You have, of course, appreciated chocolate, but appreciated the fact that you guys didn't all freak out when we, that you continued to support us and be our friends. It was very important.
Except for Graham saying, "Oh, I'm not going there." That's not part of the requirement, is it? No, it's not. But we rejoice in those who do.
Where's the team colours?
Of course, he wears the team colours.
Because I started here in 2003 doing Discovering Buddhism.
2003. Anyone was? Well, Sally. Was Sally doing it then?
I have no idea. I don't
Yeah.
remember back then. So
Yeah.
long ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. Anyway, one of these days we have to get you finished
Yes.
along with her. But she's almost finished, which is great. So it's good to know that yet again, Venerable Yangshan Lai, just to say, as I said to Geshe-la, Venerable Yangshan Lai will graduate. She'll get it. We'll all get you through the Nyungnays. Don't worry about it. We'll get you through. And it's interesting to have the conditions because I know that there's things happening around me. But, the prisoner who did the Nyungnay in prison, and it seemed impossible to do in prison, but he was not only on track to complete Discovering Buddhism, he also aspired to ordination. in a weird way, I'm going to say, unfortunately, he was released from prison, because once he was released from prison, and I was talking to him about 6 months later, and the idea of ordination, he says, oh, you know, maybe not now, because, you know, maybe it wasn't grounded anyway, apart from you might as well be ordained in prison because, you know, because the conditions in a weird way are there, as they were for him to study. And then, of course, once he was released, the things that he hadn't completed were the prostrations and Vajrasattva. He'd done everything else. So it's just a shame. So we know that when somebody does complete, we know it's no mean feat. It's like when you get through a Nyungne, we know it's hard, right? But we know, you know, persistence.
And then Geshe-La's also saying, oh yes, but by the way, that's just the beginning.
But it really is. Is it once you, I mean, it's preliminary.
It's preliminary.
It's preliminary. It's pre. So I think we have some offerings here for, shall I just call them up?
Yes,
Venerable Wangmo?
yeah, we're thinking it's for you.
No, we had a little ritual established last year when Venerable Gongpo ordained. And so your fellow Dharma Jewels have put together a little offering to you.
You guys.
Because, you know, it all happened during COVID lockdown, so they couldn't come. They weren't allowed to.
That's all you ever have an easy start.
Eva's got photos of that girl.
We just want to say on behalf of all of us collectively that how proud we are of you and what you've achieved. And yeah, it's an amazing achievement, and congratulations. And we wish you to continue along this journey and enjoy it. And yeah, we're just, I don't know, proud is the word that just keeps coming to me. I just think it's amazing that you've taken this decision. You know, like it's just very wonderful.
I've never been so happy.
Yeah.
Everyone, photos, you know, put photos on Facebook or whatever. Gee, you look happy. You know, you
Yeah.
just look so happy.
I was looking this morning, and because I was reflecting on changes and just thinking, wow, such a transformation. Not just what you're
The long
wearing.
dreadlocks.
Yeah, not just the dreadlocks, but,
yeah.
you know, inner
Yes.
transformation. Yeah.
So I'll give you that.
Okay. So here you go from your fellow Dharma Jewels.
Thank you.
And oh, I need another one. I need another cut-off, folks.
Oh, you don't want me to put it back over you? I get to keep it. Thank you. Do you want this one? Oh, no, this one. Thank you very much, everyone.
And yes, Venerable Yanchana, our star pupil, I keep saying.
And it still
Almost.
embarrasses me.
And
I'm
it still
sorry.
embarrasses her, but the light achiever, I call her. She just chips away.
I plug
quietly,
away. That's
plugs
my
away
thing.
quietly.
Well,
So Graham wanted to say?
Just watching you go through this transformation is totally inspirational from all of us, but, you know, seeing you from the beginning and getting inspiration and help, you know, you're always there with some information and beautiful advice for me. And you know, your journey has been totally inspirational, and you've been both very helpful to me, and I'm very emotional. Sorry.
Thank you. And Graham, same to you. You have inspired me as well. And I'm sure that other people, the way that you have overcome, you've applied the Dharma to some of your issues and you've nailed it. And you said to me last time, every day is getting better. And I know you mean it.
Thank you very much.
So thank you. Thank you, everybody.
So if I can, and there's a little something.
Oh, it smells nice. Thank you.
There's something from me there.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you for everything you have done.
And Wongmola.
All my life.
Never had too many red carrots with me.
Actually, you can't. I got given, I had so many, I just thought, what am I going to do with all of these? And one's for the mandala set, and one's for going shopping, and one's for this, and one's for that.
Chocolate's got something for you as
I'm going to hang on to these because I just had the feeling you want a photo.
Thank you
Did you
very
want to get a
much.
photo maybe next to Chucky Lump?
There are three of you.
And then
Sisters are doing it for themselves. Are we still recording or just?
No.
Oh, good.
I actually forgot to press
Just
record on the last second.
Good. I mean, not good, but you
I'm
know.
so sorry.
No, I was going to say, I don't think we recorded.
Pause or stop recording on there.
Yeah.
Sorry?
It says pause or stop recording.
Yeah, no, but it's not actually recording.
There's no red thing saying
Yeah,
record.
it's recording.
Okay, it is recording. Well, sorry.
Can we pause
Oh,
or
my
stop
mistake,
recording?
sorry, my big head in there.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.